panel discussion. The title of this segment is Leadership in Practice, Closing the Advancement Gap. This session brings together organizational leaders in practice to discuss how inclusion can actually move from a mere idea, a mere concept, to actual practice, to a reality. And in order to conduct this session, I would invite Hassan Adnan, board member of PSTD, founder and leadership consultant, to kindly come forward and continue with this session. Thank you so much, Adnan.
Can you open the mic? Hanji. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Tara. So, what a fantastic session. Thank you, Anleep. It's always a pleasure to listen to you and Arshi and all the presenters who were here, setting the context in terms of the inclusive shift. So, welcome to the CEO panel, and we have diverse and accomplished panelists with us today. This is not going to be an ordinary diversity discussion that we will have today. Like Fahad in the morning said, we've changed the gears today in this WIBCON. So we will talk about how do we move from intention to action. So in this panel, over the next 50 minutes or so, we'll focus on organization systems that shape career progression, leadership access, pay equity in the organization. And we will also explore how leadership can translate inclusion into fair opportunity and leadership advancement as well. So let's talk about the advancement gap. What do we mean by the advancement gap? So just giving you that context, organizations today are increasingly vocal about inclusion. So all the organizations are talking about it, they are taking actions to be more inclusive as well. Yet leadership representation, pay equity, and promotion outcomes continue to reveal persistent disparities. The question is no longer whether organizations value inclusion, but the question today is whether leadership systems in the organizations are truly designed for equitable advancement. I will break down the advancement gap into 4 areas. First one, if you look around today in the corporate world, most organizations are hiring larger number of females at the entry level, but that does not translate into the senior level, right? So that's one. Number 2, persistent pay and opportunity gaps that exist in the organization. Third, informal leadership networks in the organization and social dynamics that influence advancement in the organization as well. And finally, the fourth one, the definition of inclusion. How do you define inclusion? We saw in the last 2 sessions, Bisma brought it up, that how inclusive you are, it's not just gender, but have you broadened it to differently abled employees as well as the generations, right? And Lee was talking about generational diversity in the organization is a challenge that many organizations are grappling today to deal with it. Before calling the panel, I will share some stats from Pakistan and global stats as well to give you that context. Where do we stand today? As per the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, women labor force in Pakistan have gone up from 21% to 25% in the last 5 years. But when we look at senior level, the representation sharply drops down. It goes to 6% at the managerial level, 9% at the middle to senior management level. So it drops down significantly. Another survey that was done by Pakistan Business Council on gender diversity, which covered about 86 companies, 86% of the companies had less than 15% women in the workforce. 63% of the companies had less than 5% women in the workforce. The same survey also revealed that nearly 70% of the companies were not collecting or measuring gender gap. So they were not collecting any gender gap data. So they do not know. So they may be doing a lot on inclusion without measuring whether pay, progression, and opportunity are equitable or not. So these are some of the stats from Pakistan. If you look at globally, the gender gap is 68% closed. But at the current rate, this survey suggests, research suggests that it will take 123 years to close the gap fully. So we are moving in that direction, but at a slow pace. I won't talk about Pakistan gender parity. We know the number where it falls. It's pretty much at the bottom of the list globally. And there is a long way to go. With this context, I will now like to invite our esteemed panelists to learn what they are doing in their organization to close this advancement gap. But more importantly, their perspective on what could be the barriers and how to accelerate closing this gap. So my first panelist I would like to invite is CEO FMC Pakistan. He has 26 years of career across Pakistan, South Asia, the wider Asia Pacific region, from local startups to big multinationals like Procter & Gamble, PAT, Agro Foods. I will invite Hasibullah Zahoor. Big round of applause, please. Take seat. The next panelist is CEO Gourmet, with a background in law, public service, and enterprise transformation, a Harvard Law School graduate and former Pakistan Police Services officer. He took retirement and went into expanding Gourmet into various facets grown across FMCG, value-added agriculture, biosciences research, and media. Mr. Zubair Nawaz Chattha, thank you very much for coming over. Rafia Sayyed, thank you very much for coming over, is a career civil servant from Pakistan Commerce and Trade. Assalamu alaikum, welcome Rafia, please aaiye. She has nearly 2 decades of experience in trade policy, export development, and institutional reform, currently serving as Director General at the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan. For a layman like me, I say she promotes made in Pakistan products globally. So thank you very much, Rafia, for joining us. The next panelist is General Manager at Coca-Cola CCI Pakistan, our friend from Turkey. His career journey is pretty straightforward. He joined Coca-Cola CCI back in '98 and stuck with one company. So a quality and characteristic our generation demonstrates, the loyalty that he has shown with CCI. He has been through various commercial roles and grown into general management, and he has worked in 4 countries before Pakistan. He was in Turkey, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan. Sunay Sanli, thank you very much for joining. Next panelist is CCO at Chughtai Lab and Healthcare. For last 8 years, she's looking after revenue side for retail and corporate function of the organization. Pretty massive kind of infrastructure, 500 locations, 600 corporate panels, and largest home sampling fleet as well. She's also the founder of All Pakistan Women Movement and Advocacy and Capacity Building Platform for Women, a very passionate person, Javeria Khan. And finally, the last panelist we have is from IGI Life Vitality. He leads the team there. He has been working with IGI Life since its acquisition by Packages Group in 2014. Before that, he was in Canada working with Manulife and have experience doing actuarial consulting in Middle East and Africa as well. And he's passionate about golf, which I will play with him sometime over the weekend. So I invite Ali Nadin. I'll quickly get into it in terms of saving the time. And my first question to all of you is, and I would like you to keep it to 1.5 minutes so we can go through more questions on it as well. So first question is where you can introduce what is one organizational system that most strongly shapes who advances inside your organization today.
I think, Hassan, you ask a good question because there are a lot of processes and systems which, in varying qualities and varying degrees of execution, are there in terms of talent reviews, performance appraisals, mentorships. But if you ask me what is the one organizational system that I've seen across companies when it comes to selecting talent or advancing to senior levels, I think, which is the point that you made in your introduction. It is fundamentally 3 words. It is all about demonstrated business impact. So talent, irrespective of gender or background, that is able to demonstrate business impact consistently is talent that grows in any organization. And I think the leadership challenge when it comes to inclusion is to make sure that all talent has an equal opportunity to demonstrate this business impact. And I think I don't want to elaborate on various aspects of this challenge. Perhaps that will come later down the talk. But fundamentally, it is about consistently creating business impact and giving everybody an equal chance to do that. I think that is what funnels the leadership succession or the talent pipeline in any great company.
Thank you, Asif. So it's about creating business impact and giving everyone equal opportunity there. So that's great. Zubair, over to you.
Thank you very much, Hassan. So about the question and of course the discussion that I've been listening around here. So fundamentally what we tend to do in our organization is, I personally and our organization is fundamentally driven through the values that we have in our religion. So our HR people and everybody around would be seconding this, that what we tend to do is that we follow certain guidelines. So there are a lot of complex problems that we encounter these days: women inclusion, diversity, and diversity including all the different segments of society. So considering that human beings are structured in a manner that they would try to live in groups or identify themselves as groups. So I have personally been encountering this all of my life. So if you are in, let's say, in police service, so there are people who are in police service and there are people who are in DMG. So they create distinction by sticking to the group. So if within the police, there are like police services of Pakistan, and then they call the rankers coming from the bottom. So what I've been consistently doing in my life is that I have never submitted to this sort of grouping. So why? Based on the last address of our Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that किसी काले को किसी गोरे पर कोई फौकियत हासिल नहीं, मगर वो जो परहेजगार, means that somebody who abides by the certain framework and works more efficiently and delivers more on the objectives. So considering that, I would never discriminate among different groups. So this is the core value that we try to maintain within our organization, that we tend to look at people without any discrimination, just on the basis of the values they bring into our system and the competence that they entrust within their system.
Thank you very much, Zubair sir. So very powerful. I mean, looking at people without any discrimination and bias. And we talked about biases. Biases exist at all levels. All of us carry biases. So if an organization can create that value where people can be looked at without biases and discrimination, that will create a beautiful culture. So thank you very much, and over to Rafia now.
Yeah, so I guess nowadays, I mean, as you've mentioned, yes, we've had groupings in the civil service. That's where I also come from. But nowadays, it's not like that. It's more about your output, the transparency, what you're able to deliver or not deliver. So it's eventually your output that determines where you're going to get in the, I mean, in the hierarchy or in the chain. So as long as we are maintaining that merit-based system or that transparency, there is no segregation based on gender per se in the public sector. That is something I would say is a positive about the government sector. So it's been about our delivery, what we are able to deliver, and that gives us a clean path to, you know, promotions and getting at the top. So that is there for everyone.
Thank you, Rafia. So Sunai, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Hassan. So in CCI, internally we are following up a process which we call the Talent Development Forum. In short, we say TDF. It is including several organizational development areas, which is including some HR KPIs as well. And the second part of this TDF is succession planning for identified key critical roles. It means that together with our ExCom members and together with our leadership team, we are discussing all the development areas of talents who are identified, who are assigned for succession planning. Till that moment, this is the responsibility of organization and the CCI. But after that, each individual receives a feedback from their line managers and the HR people. What are the development areas to reach out these key critical roles? We call this in the system individual development plan. After that, organization is trying to provide all the sources for the individuals to develop themselves, but the main responsibility, we believe that has belonged to the talent, belong to individual. So this is a process which we are following in CCI at this moment.
Okay. Thank you, Sunai. So TDF process in terms of managing talent and advancing them?
So, ये बड़ा important question है that Hassan has just asked. That what is that one factor that organizations can look into to improve women participation at senior leadership levels? We need to understand the primary role of women. Women are supposed to be, or considered to be, or conditioned to be the primary caregivers in our country, whereas men are the primary breadwinners in the country. Until and unless organizations do not design the frameworks, the policies, and the support system to create opportunities for women where they can balance the caregiving responsibility as well as official responsibilities, I think such conversations will only remain conversations. I feel flexibility in working hours, having daycare centers within the facilities, and the ease of mobility are three fundamental factors that all organizations need to put their efforts in and build their policies around.
Thank you, Javeria. So rightly pointed out, the roles in the society should be understood, the way organization builds systems should cater for, and that flexibility should be available. G. Ali.
And G, so I think the question was, what systems we have in place for advancement. So I think at IGI or at I think packages, one thing that I observed was the things that you do that are part of your KPIs that you have to do. But one thing I find when I'm looking at growing people in the senior leadership role is what more are they doing in terms of taking responsibility or ownership of things that belong to other areas, and taking a keen interest in what other areas are doing. Because, the more, the higher you go, you have to not just understand what you're doing, but also some other aspects of the business. So I think it's very important for people to take ownership of what is happening in other areas also.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ali. So my next question is for all the panelists, but we can quickly address in one word. Primarily, we have talked about it that the women induction into the workforce, the number is increasing. The survey conducted by Pakistan Business Council suggests that in some companies it goes up to 60% plus as well. So women being inducted into the workforce. When we go higher in the organization, it does not reflect, the number drops down significantly. So do you think the biggest barrier to equitable advancement today is, number one, policy, number two, company culture, number three, social norms, number four, leadership behaviors? So which one would you pick as the biggest barrier to equitable advancement, where those numbers at the bottom do not translate at the same level when you go to the boardroom? So Hasib, again, starting with you.
Yeah, I think should be working fine, yeah. I think it's a combination of leadership behavior and culture. And both feed off each other. So
They're intertwined.
Yeah. So culture, a corporate culture is eventually what leadership behavior makes it.
Okay.
And then you obviously have leaders emerging in subsequent generations who are influenced by the existing culture. So this is a sort of cycle in which you have, and the barrier that you talk about is fundamentally bias that creeps into well-established processes like talent reviews, succession plans, because all companies have these processes, right? So it can't be policy alone. It would be very surprising if by policy, any organization which wants to, I think Andalip made the point that organizations cannot survive without diversity. And people know this, business people know this, right? So it is fundamentally a combination of leadership behavior and culture, in my
Thank you. So in your perspective, culture and leadership behaviors.
To my understanding, yes, it is, of course, a blend of the policy making and at the same time the culture also. But what is to be driven in the right direction is, of course, the cultural values, which, of course, take a longer period of time. So these steps are going to be the beginning, and then a continuity towards this will bring certain results in a longer period of time, because cultures and the social norms take a longer period of time in change. But yes, the first starting step would, of course, be the policy making.
Okay, good. So start with policy, culture would take longer time. Thank you, Zubair Sahab. Rafia.
So, yes, policy is important in my opinion, but it's more to do with the, I would say, social conditioning and, those work and life balances expected out of a woman, her mobility, and it's the support system that is offered to her. So that is, I guess, the major impediment, if at all. So in terms of policies, I believe every institution, be it a private sector organization or a public sector one, as I told you already, there is no hindrances per se. It's something that comes from home, if you know, so much is expected out of her, as our panelist, she said, that, we have that preconceived role for her, and that has been a generational thing that's been being passed on, that woman is supposed to do this and she's supposed to do that. There's a rhetoric and a narrative that's been going around, and now to break out of those stereotypical roles, you need a huge support system from back home as well, and as well as in spite of a policy, if somebody, a head of the organization, is also socially conditioned that way, no policy would thrive. So it's about the social conditioning, that narrative that needs to break. So it's more in the houses, it's more in the mindset of the society that needs to change to enable this actual empowerment and closing this gap.
Okay, so it's a combination. Besides policy, then it's the environment that you create, and also you talked about the social norms or social interaction as well. That's very important. And we'll come back to that point in the next round. Thank you. Sunai.
Hassan, I'm picking leadership responsibility here, what you asked us, because in majority of the organizations, we are observing that they have very well designed frameworks for diversity, inclusion, and for all the metrics. But the main question here comes to my mind that, are we acting on that? That's the question mark. What I mean exactly here is, as a leadership responsibility, are we providing enough access to equal opportunities for each individual in the organization? That's the thing we need to focus on. And the second thing I want to highlight here that how we are evaluating readiness of the talents. That's a big responsibility of leadership team as well, because most of the organizations are evaluating the talents for some key roles based on the current performance results, right? But on the other hand, we are missing the potential part. That's why I strongly believe that performance and potential matrices are the key to identify an individual is ready for a new role or not. And the last thing, which previous presentation was mentioned, that how is the valuable feedback sessions we are having with our employees? Because sometimes when everything is good, when the results are perfect, to give a feedback is the most fancy thing around the world, right? But are we having these tough calls as a responsibility of the organization, as a leader? That is the question mark, and that is the thing we need to be focused on and to be more responsible, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Sunai. So leadership, behavior, and responsibility is most critical, but then he rightly pointed out that sometimes in the execution, the system is able to create that fairness in terms of the opportunity and doing the right things. So it fizzles out, even the process is done, but even to the stage of feedback where it kind of loses the impact. So Javeria, over to you.
So this question is very important to understand that there is a large number of women that is entering into the workforce, but at leadership positions, the number is disproportionate. There are very few women at leadership. I can see so many women sitting here in the hall, and I feel where everybody is talking about that the ownership or the onus is on the organization, on the policies, on the frameworks. My question and my humble submission is to all the women. I think some of the ownership is on us as well, because we as women are trying to strike a perfect balance between work life and official life. And let me tell you, after 15 years of running a household and being in part of a corporate job, there is no way that as a woman you can strike a perfect balance. If anybody has made you believe into this fallacy, I'm sorry, my friends, that's wrong. You will be a perfect worker, a perfect professional on a few days, and you will be a perfect mother on a few days. You will be failing at many ends. And that is one reason that I feel we as women give up. When we rise to middle management, senior management level, the responsibility increases. And when that responsibility increases, that requires some kind of balance. So we need to understand and become more resilient, become more focused, and seek professional counseling and mentoring from people who can navigate that path for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Javeria, and we'll come back to you again, building on this question in the next round. G. Ali.
So, I think in my view, I think it's leadership behavior.
Leadership behavior?
I think because everything stems down from policies are made by leadership, and so I think that's just one key, that leads to women, coming up on the, higher up in the management.
Thank you, Ali. So leadership behavior from Ali as well. I'll quickly engage with all of you as well and pick your mind as well. What do you think? So what do you think the biggest behavior to equitable advancement today? Is it policy? Please raise your hand if you think the biggest barrier is policy. Is it culture, company culture? Okay. Is it social norms? Yeah. Yeah. So few on social norms. Second is company culture. And then what about the leadership? Leadership behavior. So probably, in your opinion, leadership behavior is the biggest barrier, followed by social norms and then company culture. Here also we picked up leadership behavior, company culture, which raises very interesting thought that sometimes you see in the organizations that people are hiding behind the policy. I've come across 24 years in the corporate. So corporate leaders, senior leaders would come to me in HR, Hassan, there is no policy and our female team member needs to have some flexibility and there is no policy, what should I do? And I am really, disappointed in those questions, because leadership behavior means you take ownership. No one is tracking, how you manage your teams. It's all about the business results and the outcome. You take ownership. So sometimes you see people hiding behind the policy, that there is a lack of policy. And then when you start making policies, sometimes you overdo and you start defining everything to the nth level, which kind of constrain the organization as well. So very important point, that leadership behavior is really critical. And if the leaders are empowered, they can make the right choices and define the policies for their own teams as well. So coming to the next question, and I'll address it to Javeria and Faria, to both of you, because you talked about work-life balance and the roles in the society as well. So in many organizations, we hear leadership opportunities still emerge through informal sponsorships and networks, right? Maybe after office hours, and how you engage, and the time which female may not be able to give in those networks. So how do we make advancement systems more transparent and equitable in such social setting? Because Faria also talked about social norms. So I would like both of you to address this.
So there is a clear disparity, and let's accept it. So when men are into the workforce, they have a partner who is 100% responsible for taking care of the family, nurturing the family. When women, they are in the workforce, at the back end, they have the help, the domestic help to nurture the family. So inevitably, we women have to miss out on a lot of opportunities. We women have to miss out on a lot of opportunities where we have to be seen, we have to be networking. I think two things that can massively help us bridge this advancement gap is, one, creating informal networks, creating mentorship opportunities, and creating spaces where they can feel safer to connect and look at the role models. So these are the things that we need to bring in at leadership level. We need to accept it that women are carrying dual responsibility in our cultural context, and we can't discount that. So we really need to bring in additional informal networking, mentoring, coaching, setups where we can help them and they can learn and be visible at the same scale.
Thank you, Javeria. G. Faria.
If I exclusively, talk about my own sector, at least I have the privilege to say no. If I don't want to go to a networking dinner, it's after my office hours, it does not really impact my job. But that said, I mean, like the kind of job I'm doing currently, it requires networking, right? So I need to be around and everything. Something which Javeria also said, that the onus is on us as well. We as women, I believe every working mom or every working individual would agree that we carry this inherent guilt, because I am being ambitious, I'm giving more time to work, not my children. You need to grow out of that, right? So when I started progressing into the senior level, I told my husband, like, they're your kids as well, right? It's not just my job. So that is something women need to grow out from, because again, it's the social conditioning. It's been, sort of fed to you since childhood. This is your job. This is not just the woman's job. It's a partnership. You have to be, inclusive back at home as well. So women need to grow out of that guilt. It's not entirely your responsibility. Why cannot the husband cook? I mean, I'm just saying. So, I mean, there are times when, you both have to balance it.
Yeah.
So, having that partnership at home, that will exhibit itself in your outside. And the informal networking and everything, yes, that matters. So, agar husband ghar se ja sakta hai, bagair bataye, I'm going out with friends and no details given, it should be extended to the woman as well. And you need to grow out of that guilt. You're not answerable to anybody but yourself. So have that confidence, grow out of that guilt. Bachche dono ke hain, so just go out there and be yourself.
Thank you, Rafia. Thank you, Javeria. So, Rafia, you point out a very interesting dimension to this as well. Then, when we talk about systems at the organization, which kind of cater for the social norms, the support system at the home, building that, having that partnership is also critical in terms of allowing you to go for the advancement. So, very rightly pointed out. Thank you very much. Zubair sir, one question that often I pick up in our informal discussions as well, when we talk about it, we say that founder-led organizations, you find that the sponsors typically value loyalty over competence sometimes as well. So that's a perception, either myth or fact. We are not getting into it. But how do you see this fairly balancing out the loyalty, performance, and meritocracy in the organization, how it should be driven by the founders?
Okay. So as of the question, yes, generally the trend is of giving far more priority to the loyalty. But yes, as the organizations grow, so by necessity, the need is of organizing a group of more competent, more efficient, and professional people, rather than just sticking to just one simple standard of loyalty. So we have been transforming through all of these stages. Initially, yes, there were like 1 or 2 people who were totally responsible for the unit, but now there are systems, and then people are responsible for their segment, and they are being assessed on the basis of their competence, their delivery, and their performance. So unless you don't break apart from that level of or that reliance of loyalty, because you have to drive loyalty from everybody, and that loyalty can only be driven through the synergy of the values that you share with your team.
Okay.
So unless that environment is created, you cannot have a sustainable system.
Right. So it's not just loyalty, it's values of the organization as well. And you see how they synergize into it. So very rightly said. Hasib, I have a question, because you currently from consumer into the agri-business as well. In sectors like agriculture, women already play a critical role across the value chain. So what are you doing, and how we can really make equitable advancement for the women in the agri-business, in the rural areas, and also help them getting more empowered?
FMC is, we are a science-based technology company. So in our case, to grow, we have to innovate. And to innovate, we have to have diversity across our teams, like you said, across the value chain. So for us, it's not an HR initiative. It's not something that we want to do to look good. It is a business imperative. For us to run the company, we have to have diversity, including gender diversity, right? So typically what you mentioned, how do we enable it, right? Because there are challenges. We talked about cultural challenges, social norms, and leadership behavior. So we intervene, or we create systems within the company at 2 levels, right? One is what I would call enablement. So for example, things like daycare centers have been mentioned, things like providing drivers to female employees so they can travel to work in the rural. Those are basic enablement things, providing accessible workplaces for differently abled people, and so on and so forth, right? So that's something that's become wallpaper over the years. Everybody's doing it. The other aspect where we go in and intervene is again, most well-run companies have processes for advancement. Things like talent reviews, succession plans, performance appraisals, some sort of competency frameworks to assess potential. And based on that, people rise in the organization. So what we do is we go in, and I'll give you an example of what we do at FMC, right? So we go in on 5 critical areas, and we have some interventions to mitigate leadership behavior, bias, and cultural aspects, informal networks you talked about. So how do we do it, right? So the first area is we make sure that we are being inclusive when it comes to giving meaningful roles, meaningful work, international exposure, high visibility assignments that help our early joiners or people at the entry level to become visible to the larger organization, whether it's in Pakistan or regionally or globally. So that's the first thing. So we make a conscious effort to make sure that those sort of projects, assignments are distributed equitably. It's not that typically, and I've seen this in other companies, 2 or 3 people getting all the limelight, if you like. So we make an effort to give everybody an equal shot at doing significant work. That's the first thing. The second thing is when you have people coming in, you have to tailor a development pathway. So for example, we have an academic outreach program where we go to the university and we induct fresh graduates, males, females, everybody. So a development pathway then enables these people to eventually take on and deliver on those meaningful projects and responsibilities. The third thing where we go and intervene is performance appraisals. Performance appraisals, so we have a calibration layer, making sure that any bias is removed. Fourth thing we fix is competency frameworks or potential assessment. So there we do multi-panel executive sponsorship type of roles. And then everything then feeds into succession planning. Succession planning is then owned right at the top by the board. And that's how we make sure that we minimize any cultural or leadership behavior impact and give everybody an equal opportunity.
Okay. Thank you for covering the full scale of it, that all the steps that leads toward it. Now I'll come to Sunai and Ali. If you can answer the same question, how do you compare the practices we have for the advancement or closing the advancement gap in Pakistan versus other countries that you have been exposed to or you've worked in? So what are the derailers and enablers you see in Pakistan versus those countries? So how do you compare? So Sunai, let's start with you.
Yeah, okay. This is my 4th country in my professional career, actually, Pakistan. I started to work in Turkey. In Turkey, situation is relatively better than the Central Asia and Pakistan, actually, we need to say that, because there is a very well designed structure and the framework and its own action at this moment. I easily can say that. If we go to Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, so these countries are still having a transitioning process. They are benchmarking Turkey. But there are some cultural elements which makes these countries, which brings a competitive advantage actually, because women are much more into business life in Central Asia. It's coming from the history, coming from the past. For example, women are running the grocery stores, women are running the restaurants, women are driving the trucks, women are using the forklifts, car wash, 100% female work. I mean, these kind of cultural differences are making the situation a bit better. If we come to the Pakistan now, specifically for CCI Pakistan, in the past, we had several initiatives to increase the female ratio first in the organization, because to be the more inclusive, you need to have females in the organization first, right? And I believe you are the one of the leader which initiated these things in the past, right? And thank you very much for that, Hassan, also. Now we are in a good place. Every single year, our female ratio is increasing, and we have a very well-designed framework. If I'm going to speak for, like, specifically for Pakistan, I believe that not only females, but all the Pakistani talents will have critical roles in the future in CCI, for sure. Because if you ask to any CEO now what they are expecting from the future leaders, the first thing is resilience. If we evaluate the Pakistani talents, specifically Pakistani female talents, in terms of resilience, I easily can say that they are naturally born resilient. Because household is average 6, right? So imagine a female, a working female, like look after the kids, preparing them for school, caring the parents, like caring the house, preparing the food, cleaning, everything. Then go to office, meet the KPIs, achieve the targets, go back, same cycle. So I'm totally respecting all Pakistani females for all these like extra efforts in their personal life and business life. And I'm sure that that's my dream actually. Our Pakistani female leaders will have key critical roles across CCI countries, including C-level. And I'm very happy about that. Now, first time we have a CHRO like Zara is representing the all Pakistani females in CCI, and I'm going to believe that she's going to bring a new refreshment and the value for our organization. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you. So, very interesting thoughts. There is a disparity in terms of the acceptance of women's role in Pakistan versus other societies. But at the same time, what he highlights is the resilience element, which is so true. So thank you. Ali, over to you.
Yeah, so I think when you look at Pakistan and, in contrast, what is happening abroad, I think they are, interestingly, I was in the UK last week, and the building that I was standing, I think 80% of the people going, entering and exiting the building were women. And I think that's one thing that is really missing in the organizations that we are working at, where, the women in the workforce is still very small. But on the positive side, I think there's a huge effort that is being made by, I think, leadership at various organizations to bring women in the workforce, and then also making policies on how women can, become leaders also. So I think Pakistan is, I think we are a few years behind, but I think the realization is there. That's why we have WIBCON. That's why Javeria, Rafia sitting here. And I think many other organizations have, great women leaders now in Pakistan, which was not the case, maybe 5-10 years back. So I think we are moving there, and inshallah, with the effort that various organizations are putting in, inshallah, we'll get there as well.
Thank you, Ali. So making a lot of effort, but we don't want 123 years to bridge that gap globally. And in Pakistan, which stands at 146 out of 146 countries, so we will need to even make bigger effort. So now I'll come to the final answer. Let's be very brief, but before that, I will ask a simple question to the panelists as well as audience. How many of us are measuring pay parity gap in our organizations today? Just tell us yes or no. Are we measuring? Yes. Pay parity between men and women, that are they getting the right pay? Okay. Audience, आपकी organization में जवेरिया आपका सुनाए, you do equal salary certificate as well. Ali, आप लोग in the audience, are you measuring pay parity gaps in terms of gender, male and female? How many are not measuring it? Because then you don't know. You may be very inclusive, but you don't know where do you stand. So something that organizations in Pakistan need to do more of. So final round, we are almost out of time. Just one sentence or one word. What is one uncomfortable truth organizations still avoid confronting when it comes to equitable advancement? One word or one sentence.
I think fear of change.
Fear of change. Beautiful. Zubair sir?
I think it's the reality or the instinct is to go against all the basic inclusion process. So that's the truth, and one has to encounter that.
Okay, so process. G, Rafia?
I would have to concur, and for lack of a better word, yes, fear. A fear of being overcome by a female of all the things. So yes, that is there, and this, again, back to the societal condition. We need to grow out of that, grow up and get out of that fear.
Thank you, Rafia. Sonai?
I want to, not a question, but I want to share a statement actually. This is not kind of a like target KPI metric or achievement ratio. I believe that this has to be the way of doing business in the future. You know, we need to be focusing on, are we going to promote people who are making us comfortable? Or are we going to promote people who are going to make organization better? That is the question we need to answer.
Thank you. Javeria?
So this truth is not about Chughtai healthcare because roles are not tied to gender. But generally I see that roles are specifically, there is a gender bias with the roles. So we take a lot of pride that we have been able to cross this barrier, but generally organizations do tie roles with certain genders.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think in my view, I think the fear of people pointing out to the leadership that this is something that is their responsibility because, you know, at the end of the day, I think I will still, you know, repeat what I said earlier. I think it's the leadership that is to drive down this change, right? And if it's not happening, then people are always scared to point out to the leadership that this is something that they need to really focus on. So yeah.
Thank you, Ali. With that, a big round of applause and thanks to all the panelists. I think we are making great progress. Leadership here seems committed from moving from intention to action, but there is still some way to go. So thank you very much. We don't have time, unfortunately, to take your questions, but I really appreciate the candidness of the discussion and your own genuine perspectives. Thank you.
So a special token of gratitude to Sunay Sanvi, GMCCI Pakistan, Hasibullah Zahoor, CEO FMC Corporation, Zubair Nawaz Chatta, CEO Gourmet, Rafia Saeed, Director General Trade Development, Javeria Khan, CCO Chughtai Lab, Ali Nadeem, CFO IGI.